I've noticed a massive change within the gaming world in terms of a lot of people are looking more towards full performance capture, which they weren't doing before. It doesn't matter what you look like, because essentially they usually put a skin on and it's just capturing your movement. So as long as you've got the right heights and the skill set, they don't have to really look that far afield to be able to hire a performer.
Oh, hello and greetings and welcome to Voice Acting Unplugged. We're back. Margaret, we're back.
Yes,
I am joined, as always, by my invincible co-host, Margaret Ashley.
Gosh, well, let's hope I am invincible. And as you know, we always have wonderful guests come and talk to us about all the different areas of the voiceover industry. And today's rather special because we have got a voiceover agent, somebody who's in the thick of things, and she's very much into voice gaming. And if you haven't guessed yet, it's the wonderful agent from VoiceOver, Emily Dean. Hi, Emily.
Hi, Emily. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you so much. Very, very well. Thank you very much. Very, very pleased to have you here. Thank you for sparing us the time.
Thank you for asking me. Am I the first agent?
Yes, I think you are actually our first agent, which is a bit of an honour for us. Not sure if it's an honour for you. We'll soon find out. I just wanted to ask you to begin with. I think you kind of first started out in the music industry, same as me.
Okay, yes, I did.
Working in recording studios.
Yes.
So how did you get from being a tech op in a recording studio, that kind of work, into doing what you do now? How did that journey happen?
That's a very long story, really.
Oh, good. We've got a whole half hour.
Well, I kind of had a bit of a wonky kind of pathway here, really, and I don't think I sort of come from, I guess, a traditional background of an agent, because I think a lot of agents are ex-actors, I guess. But no, I came from the music industry, so way back after finishing school, I did a media studies course because I was really excited about media. And from that, I studied film and sound and kind of started really liking the sort of tech side of recording. And so worked in a few studios and then went to college in London, moved from my hometown in Suffolk to London and studied music, where I learnt quite a lot there in terms of recording and composition, and also music law as well, which is actually quite handy now, being able to read contracts. So from that, I then worked in various studios. I worked at Air Studios and West Point, mainly as an assistant engineer. I found the hours quite hard because I would start at 10 in the morning, and quite often I wouldn't finish till 4 in the morning. And I have to do it all over again. So even though I loved it and had an amazing time, I then found myself specialising in more of the editing audio, where I learned Pro Tools and started editing, and got myself a job in one of the .com sort of businesses back in sort of the late 90s, and it was a new company called Music State, and they were essentially the first sort of online agency, if you like, to represent composers, and also a library of music to then license for sort of film, advertising, corporate promos, that kind of stuff. So I told you it was long.
Yeah, no worries.
And then from that, so I was sort of editing. I edited all the audio and everything for the website, essentially. And then the two sort of CEOs had a big falling out, and the company dissolved. And me and one of the tech guys decided to start up our own company, which is very similar. And that was called Sync Squirrel. And I was doing that for a few years, where I was essentially acting as, I guess, as an agent for composers, and also had this library of music, and I'll be pushing it.
So that was licensing music for media, for advertising.
That's right, yeah.
That kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah. And alongside of that, I was sort of managing bands and artists and performers. And it kind of, the idea sort of came from, I was representing a rapper stroke performer called Professor Elemental, who's like a steampunk rapper who's quite well known actually. But
I'm well aware of his work here.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, he is.
So I managed him, and I got him some voiceover for Disney, and he really liked that area of work and wanted to get more in that world. And I was sort of thinking, well, I've got this company called Sync Squirrel, and a lot of the clients that I deal with not only want to license music, but they want to obviously have voiceovers for their projects as well. So I thought I would set up my own, rather than sort of giving him to an agent. I thought, well, I'll just start representing a few people to see if I can kind of push them for voiceover. And that's where VoiceFox was born, the sister company of Sync Squirrel.
And how long ago was that?
So that was 8 years ago?
So I started in 2016, so it's coming up to 10 years ago. And from that, I just started doing really, really well with VoiceFox. And so I ended up shutting down Sync Squirrel just to concentrate on VoiceFox. And that's kind of how it was born, really. So it's a kind of a very sort of wonky path. But I feel that, with my sort of audio background, my contacts, and also my background managing performers, sort of felt
it's
like the
not
right
so
thing
different,
to do.
is it really, when you think about it, the actual process of licensing for music and voice? Very
similar. So
interesting.
So one of the things voice actors always seem to want to do straight away is, I've got to get myself an agent to get me work. What would you say to them? No, true. What would you say to them?
Yeah, it's not strictly true, really. You don't need an agent. You don't need me. I think it's really good to, as part of the business, really, to learn how to find that work initially for yourself, because there's more to what I think, more to voiceover work than just having a really good voice and learning those skills. I mean, obviously, if you have an exclusive agent who literally is there pushing you, then maybe it's not so important. But I do think sort of having that portfolio initially to be able to get a really good agent is super, super important. And it's proving to them that, that you're good at your job, and you're hireable, and you've got experience in that world. So it makes...
You then probably wouldn't take on a newbie straight out of drama school who had no experience at all.
No, I mean, obviously there is occasions where I would, because obviously, if I'm looking for a young voice, for example, there is potential for that, because obviously they can't get experience, being very young and new straight away. So there are occasions, but if you're not young, I would really recommend trying to, get your own work. And then that way you have a stronger chance of, being represented by a good agent, because you've proved your worth, and you've put yourself out there, and you work really, really hard and shown your passion, which to me means a lot. So, yeah.
And the areas that you tend to work in, Margaret mentioned that you're kind of the queen of the video game. Is that the area that you get the most work for?
Yeah, I mean, it did start out like that. I was, I wanted to get as much work as possible, and I still do want to get as much work as possible. So we do not just games and animation, but I chose to specialise in that area about 5 years ago. And how I started, kind of specialising in that area was because I started also the first ever agency to represent actors for motion and performance capture, which I then merged with my with VoiceFox. So that kind of threw me naturally into that world anyway. And I suddenly realised that actually I really, really like getting my performers this type of work, because the reason why I'm an agent is because I love to help actors achieve their dreams and their passions. And I felt that getting like a really, really cool, voiceover part and a character in a computer game was way more fun and interesting for the actor than a bit of e-learning. So I'm driven by trying to, fulfill actors' dreams and making them, have work that they really, really enjoy, because that's really important to me.
Great.
So how do you go about getting voice actors work? Can you describe what your day is like?
Well, it's changed quite a lot from when I first started out, because I've obviously built a lot of contacts and network throughout the last 10 years. But obviously, when I'm starting out, I'm phoning, I'm calling loads of people, I'm looking to see, who is likely to want a voiceover for their projects, whether that be e-learning, corporate, advertising. So I'll be approaching advertising like producers, casting directors. But also alongside of that, I like to think outside of the box. So for me, I like to shout about what I do and the people that I represent in a slightly different way. So I do crazy things like set up wrestling matches over gaming.
Oh, that was you, was it?
I was there.
I heard about that. I didn't realise that was you. Okay, it's a brilliant idea.
She wasn't wrestling.
No, I wasn't wrestling.
She did have her pom-poms.
I did.
You could have some dignity.
Yeah, I did have branded cheerleader outfits.
Fabulous.
And it was a
way.
They were
orange.
They were. It was a way for me to try and get people to talk about VoiceFox, even if they weren't at the wrestling, they'd hear about it, and also having.
Well, it worked because I heard about it.
And the whole point was I had my two of my mocap wrestlers fighting. One was dressed in a VoiceFox wrestling costume, the other one in an AI costume, and the idea was VoiceFox is going to get rid of AI forever. So it was quite a long match actually, but it was great to have everyone shouting VoiceFox really, really loudly, a stone's throw from one of the biggest gaming conferences. So I tend to sort of like to think outside the box, rather than all of the kind of more traditional ways of trying to get noticed.
Yeah.
And that is a good way to get noticed, thinking outside the box, which is what a lot of voice actors should do as well. Because do you find that when you get auditions coming in from actors, if you maybe have 4 or 5 going up for the same part, do they all sound the same, or do they all put different tilts on things?
Yeah, it's interesting. You'd be surprised actually. So when there's loads of different ways that I get my performers work in terms of when I've got the briefs through, and sometimes it's sending reels across to people, and sometimes I get a whole sheet of characters that I then pass on to certain actors who fit the voice print that they're after. And it's quite surprising that when you get those auditions in, even though I guess the actor's thinking they're being completely different and wild, that you're listening and you're thinking, oh, they all sound the same. They've got the same inflections, or they're delivering it in the same way. And I've found that the people that tend to secure the jobs are the ones that have put a little bit of a twist on it, or they stand out in a certain way. So I think it's really important, more so than ever, to not play it safe. And try and stand out, because otherwise you will merge into all of the other actors that are auditioning for the same role, and you won't stand out, so therefore you won't get chosen. So I think that's really super, super important.
Even though often the job will end up sounding very similar perhaps to all the other auditions.
Possibly.
It's the standing out that just gets you that gig first.
Yeah,
and then they worry about how they actually want to direct you.
Yeah, because I think, when you're listening to one audition after the other, and they're all merging into one, and you will remember the one that's will make you kind of go, oh, that's quite interesting. Yeah. I want to listen to that again. And so they'll listen to it again. Well, that's what I do anyway. Sometimes I'll get an audition that sounds, so different that I will literally just play it on loop, because I like it so much. But that's what you want, isn't it?
Yeah, completely.
You can suggest to a voice actor that they could do to make it different and stand out from the basic script?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard actually to say. I mean, I've sort of in analysing quite a lot why some actors book loads of work and why, even though I think some actors are really, really good and they've delivered a good audition, and I've analysed quite a lot of the reason why. And it is quite hard to explain why. There's a lot of kind of, sometimes a good read it's just confidence in the read, but also trying to think about what's not written in the script more than what's there. So what I mean by that is, think about your breath, the pace of how you're reading, the emotion behind it, whether your breath sort of cracks slightly through some kind of bit of emotion, or a little giggle, or some kind of something that brings it to life. Because essentially, you're if you were acting, you have a lot of kind of things to go on with your costume and the way you look, but when you're just relying on your voice to create that character, you need those kind of little nuances to make you stand out and to build that character, essentially.
Yeah, make you real, I guess.
Yeah.
I think we're getting more and more real as time goes on.
Yeah, exactly.
And
That's
the
really
other thing
important.
that you have to think about is how many takes do you send off?
Yeah, I mean, I personally wouldn't send any more than sort of 2 or 3 maximum. I mean, obviously, if the brief's wide open, you could, but I really honestly, I think that even if it was a case of like, well, I could try a different accent or I could do this, they will get an idea of your delivery and the character that you've built. And then obviously they can refer to your reel if they think, actually, I want to try a different accent. Can they do that? So yeah, normally I wouldn't, because they haven't got time. They haven't got time to listen to like 3 or 4 3 or 4 takes from each actor. And I tend to think, if you put your strongest at the beginning, usually they will probably know within the first. It's the same as when people are listening to a reel; they can kind of get an idea straight away if you're the right actor for the part. So,
how many voices do you tend to send to each job?
It completely varies, because there may be a brief that I get in where actually I don't have that many voices for that, and that can be down to ethnicity, for example.
Yeah.
So if they're after somebody with a Turkish background, I don't have many.
Sure.
But then obviously, if they're after a female character with a German American or RP, then I'll have loads of options, and I will send it out, and then obviously I will listen to them, and then send the best ones that I think will get the job off that.
Now, have you found over the years that you've been doing this that the industry has changed a lot, that you're being asked for things that you weren't asked for 8-9 years ago?
Yeah, funnily enough, since starting my mocap agency, I've noticed a massive change within the gaming world in terms of a lot of people are looking more towards full performance capture, which they weren't doing before. So one of the reasons why I started representing for motion capture was mainly because I had been speaking to an actor who'd been in this big game and really, really loved the work, but didn't know how to get more work like that. And there was no agents that were representing people. And there tend to be like a pool of people that were getting a lot of the work, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you look like, because essentially they usually put a skin on and it's just capturing your movement. So as long as you've got the right heights and the skill set, they don't have to really look that far afield to be able to hire a performer. So they used to use a lot of the same people for all of the jobs, and I wanted to kind of widen that up, really. And so I've sort of noticed. So I did that initially, and there was a lot of work was coming through for the bigger movements, and they used to do this thing called Frankenstein, where they'll hire an actor to do the bigger movements, like flying off the roof, and then they'll get someone else to maybe do the voice, and sometimes even the finer movements as well. But I kind of feel since Baldur's Gate 3, for example, where they used over 200 actors, all for performance capture, that it's not just about using motion capture for those Spider-Man move, but they're actually wanting people to, act normally as they would as if they were in a film, and capturing those kind of nuances as an actual performer.
Is that going to get bigger and bigger, do you think, as time goes on?
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of briefs that I'm getting now is not just about, just having the voice. Some people go, actually, we would like a video audition because we're toying with the idea of potentially doing motion capture, so performance capture. And it's just, I've noticed a lot of the sort of casting and game studios are all of a sudden, setting up mini volumes so they can capture the data themselves rather than sort of hiring out the bigger studios. So it's definitely the way it's going.
For those that don't know, can you explain what motion capture is, what P-capture is, and what a volume is?
Okay. So basically, the volume is essentially just a studio where they're actually capturing the data of the performer. I don't know why they call it volume. Volumetric. I'm not that technical, but yes, they call it the volume. And that's basically, the volume is it's got like hundreds of cameras all sort of pointing down at the performer, who is wearing a very tight and very sexy, I must say, lycra suit.
Depends on your shape.
with markers, which are very cleverly placed in certain locations all over the body. And the camera basically picks up the movement. So as the performer's moving, that will then be captured and used as data to create the character. So that's kind of just mocap, but although mocap is generally used as a big umbrella as well. But if you're sort of bringing it down to performance capture, that's where you've got those bigger movements as well as the finer movements, such as your fingertips and also your facial expressions. They'll put like markers on your face to capture your facial expressions, like your smile or frown or whatever. And then you've got the voiceover side as well. So it's basically capturing the whole performance of the actor digitally, essentially.
Wow. So there's a lot involved in that. And I'm guessing that in this day and age, and for this particular kind of work especially, proper training is absolutely required, because you need to understand blocking, you need to understand
yes and no
camera work and so on.
Yes and no, to be honest. I have got people work that don't have experience. I think it's handy to have, because then you know all the jargon. So when they, when you're first in the volume, they'll ask you to do a T pose, which is actually putting your arm out, which I can't quite do here. but you'll know all of these this kind of terminology and jargon. They can easily tell you it on the set. It's not a necessity, but it just kind of makes you, I guess, feel a little less nervous when you're sort of going in, because you have a little bit of understanding. It's quite interesting doing. But essentially, you don't have to worry about it, because, there's loads of tech people there that can show you and tell you what to do. And literally all you got to do is do what you do well, which is being an actor and acting. The good thing about it is you don't have to just sort of face one camera, because you've got cameras all around. So you don't even have to worry about that. You just be your natural self and act as you would as if you were performing. So there's not really much more to it than that, really. I mean, obviously there's certain things that you can do sort of technically wise, but you can be taught that on set.
Okay.
Now you have grown phenomenally over the past few years. How do you manage to keep in track everybody that you've got on your books and select who you want to go for what?
Well, the good thing about me, because I'm not a big agency, so I don't have loads of agents. It's just me. And Saoirse, I cannot tell you. Saoirse has been my Foxy assistant now for just over a year, and I tell you, I now couldn't be without her. And I always had this problem when setting up my agency, when you're starting something from the ground up, and then all of a sudden it becomes quite big, and then you're like, okay, so now how am I going to delegate this to other people? Because everything is kind of, it's sort of in my head and like written down. I know my system, but how do I tell it to someone else? And Saoirse is amazing, and she's picked it up incredibly well. So I've been able to have a proper holiday for the first time in 10 years, which has been amazing.
Right.
But other than that, I know my roster inside out. I know they're like a family to me. And so I automatically, if someone sends me a brief, I'll automatically think, oh, that person will be good for that, because I will get to know them through them auditioning. So I can hear what their strengths are and what I think they're good at. I kind of feel that with the new people, obviously that takes a little bit of time, because you're always learning what they can and maybe what they're not so good at. So I do feel that I know my talent really well, and I talk to them quite a lot. And if they're having doubts or they're worried about something, they're asking feedback, I will give that. So I do feel that I not only know them, what they can do kind of professionally, but also just what their goals are, so I can help them to achieve it, really.
Yeah. What's missing from your roster? Where are the accents, regional accents perhaps, that you're missing?
Yeah, I mean, my roster is pretty full. I actually represent about 300 actors, which is quite a lot.
Wow.
But I mean, obviously some of those are, because I've got 2 rosters, obviously my mocap as well, which is specifically for mocap. So in terms of what I look for, because I do get a lot of people emailing me on a daily basis asking to join the roster, and essentially my books are closed, but there are certain people that I will be like, oh, okay. And so I usually look for, they must have, because of what I specialize in, gaming and animation, they must have like a gaming animation reel. Ideally, I need to see that the passion is there, and that they're a gamer and they love that kind of world, and that they've done some workshops, and that's literally an area they want to focus on. In terms of accents and ethnicity, Japanese, being able to do really good American accent is always really, really useful, because I have some Japanese who are amazing, but they are very much about the Japanese accent and the language, as opposed to other accents. So that comes up quite a lot within gaming, having somebody who's Japanese, East Asian. And then there's some other ethnicities as well, like I haven't got any Korean or Thai. They're quite unusual ones, but yeah, it's tricky, because I also like to have, because of the type of work that I get, generally requires people to be based in the UK. So it's hard to find those sort of nationalities that are based in the UK that have all of those sort of qualities that I'm looking for. So they're like gold dust, really.
That was going to be my next question. As a British agency, do you have international artists around the world?
I do, but I'm not really taking anyone on outside the UK anymore. I do, because of what I did before gaming, and also just because of the way a lot of my clients work. It does require people to be based in the UK. I feel I can get a lot more work. But saying that, I have got a few talent that are based outside of the UK, but yeah, I'm not really looking to take anybody else on outside of the UK. It's tricky with time zones.
Yes.
It's tricky with time zones. It's tricky if, especially within gaming, if they want people in person, in the studio. And yes, and also payment as well. I want to make sure that the actors are getting all of the money, as opposed to some of the money being deducted through, transfer and conversion fees and things like that.
Sure.
So,
how can you see, I mean, I know it's how long is a piece of string. Can you see where the industry is going over the next, say, 4 or 5 years?
Well, I mean, it is tricky to know, isn't it? Because obviously we're in this awful world of AI, which I personally feel is going to be okay. It's going to level out. I think everyone's like panicking. But just through seeing a lot of feedback that the general kind of public is saying about AI, they're starting to get irritated by it, because they don't feel that it's genuine. They don't feel it's real. They're not. You'll see videos, for example, and someone will say, "Oh, it's AI," and it just dismisses it straight away. I think in sort of the VoiceFox bubble of mainly focusing on gaming and animation, again, I feel quite safe. And the reason is because with gaming, it's kind of treated a little bit more as if you're like an actor in, you know, a film or something like that, because you have, not only do the directors want to direct you and get all of those nuances and draw on those past experiences and emotions that you just can't get with AI. But also beyond that, you have the actor behind the character who then goes off to Comic-Cons and helps promote your game, essentially, which obviously AI can't do that unless they're going to go as a robot. But there's a lot more to it, and people are becoming famous from voicing big characters in games. So I kind of feel I feel quite safe in that world, in the fact that I think, in terms of commercials and corporate e-learning, I think unfortunately AI is going to take out the kind of the sort of
low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, I think so. But even the e-learning, you know, I've still got some e-learning clients, and even that, it sort of changed actually before AI became a thing, where people were wanting more realistic performances for their e-learning, so it wasn't so dry. So it's become a lot more sort of actor-based and actor-driven, as opposed to just like a dry sort of voiceover, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Commercials, I kind of feel that I think brands would be the bigger brands. I just don't. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's naive of me to think that. But if I had a brand, I wouldn't want to cheapen my brand with somebody knowing, or the threat of somebody knowing that I'd used AI to voice my adverts. So it's tricky to know. But I think generally within sort of gaming and animation, I feel quietly confident that that's going to be okay. I mean, there's going to be areas within that, you know, like the smaller characters or even placeholders, which people used to hire actors for. Maybe that will be taken by AI. But I don't know.
What piece of advice would you give to either somebody who's thinking of coming into voice acting or who is just starting out into voice acting? What would you advise them to do to make sure they can get more work, or be seen by an agent, or just enjoy what they're doing?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, really. I kind of feel that if you have a real passion for something, and this is what I kind of, you know, really try to drive home to people, that you will naturally seek out ways to do it. So whether it's being a mocap performer, so a lot of people who want to get into sort of the mocap world, they kind of think, oh, well, how can I do that? If I suddenly do like a stage combat course, does that mean I'm going to be represented? And that's actually not necessarily the case. In terms of the bigger skill set, it's usually the people that have lived and breathed, maybe at the age of 5 onwards, have been really passionate about martial arts. And they're the ones that stand out from, you know, the others who, okay, they think, I want to get some mocap work, I'm going to do like a martial arts course, but they're forgetting that they're going to be up against these people that have been doing it for a long time. So it's basically about finding where your passion lies and what you really truly want to do. And whether it's like looking at your skill set, what makes you from a young age and where you are now, there'll be like a pattern within as you grow, and you'll see areas that you're like, actually, I've really enjoyed that. Actually, I've really, I've been dancing all my life, and home in on those kind of passions and home in on those skill sets. And in terms of voiceover, as opposed to the bigger movement, I would definitely advise people to do an acting course. I did one. I'm not an actor. I don't tend to be an actor at all, but I did one because I wanted to understand what it feels like to be an actor. It wasn't a very long course. I just did a short workshop, but I wanted a whole sort of 360 view.
Well, presumably it helps you to identify a good audition above anything else.
It does, and also makes me a little bit more empathy. You realise how really hard it is. So I would definitely do like an acting course, and then maybe seek out specific courses and workshops that do basically will be able to teach you more about what you're passionate about. So whether that's seeking out animation workshops or gaming workshops or a voiceover coach who specializes in commercials, or whatever it is you're passionate about, is to really seek those people out and never stop learning. Because, you know, even people that I represent who, you know, they've had so much work and they're doing really, really well, they still do these workshops. They're still learning.
Yeah,
they're still,
absolutely,
you know, because trends change as well. And also, you know, what people were looking at, you know, even 5 years ago is completely different to what someone is looking at now. And there'll be different kind of, tools, and there'll be different or new people that have come into the industry. And a lot of casting directors do these workshops. So it's really good to, you know, it's a really good chance of you to be able to show off your talent to the casting directors, so that when they're, you know, looking for somebody, they'll think of you and they go, actually, that person was really, really easy to direct. They knew their, you know, because there's a lot of risk involved, I think, when casting a new performer that they've never worked with before. And they could do a really good audition, but if they've never directed them before, you know, there's a little bit of a risk. So sometimes they will play it safe and say, well, that was a really good audition, but this person who I worked with before also is really good, and I know that I can direct them and they're reliable. So it's a good way of showing them that you're reliable and how easy you are to direct.
And getting feedback too. Is it normally the casting agent is somebody that's behind a paywall that you can't talk to, you know, and so to get some actual feedback from them is priceless.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. So I really, really, and also, you know, I totally understand that, you know, everything costs money, and when you're starting out, you're like, I haven't got much money to be able to do that, and I do totally understand that, and I guess I do. You know, there are other ways of trying to find ways to learn rather than paying those big amounts. And it can be starting off small, and then sort of gradually sort of building up. When you got your first job, maybe put a section of it aside to get more training, and, you know, just to kind of build from there. It's it's tricky starting out, and I do totally get that when you're everything costs money, doesn't it, basically?
It does, yeah. No, we've run out of time.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
really
I could sit and talk to you all day. Thank you so much for coming and joining us and talking to us. It's an area that Margaret knows better than I do, because I don't have an agent. I haven't done any motion capture. I'd love to do some at some point, but it's not something I've done up until now. So thank you so much for your knowledge and for coming and spending time with our little podcast.
And being our first agent.
Oh,
absolutely.
I'm very honoured. Thank you so much for asking me. I
You're
usually don't like
welcome.
this kind of stuff. I'm kind of like, I like to be behind the shadows, but I've really enjoyed it. You're a very good host.
Oh, bless
well, that's
you.
what
Thank
we're
you very
hoping
much.
to tell everybody about, what is behind the shadows. So
Absolutely.
if you have enjoyed the podcast, if you've enjoyed or want to know more about either Anthony, myself, or Emily, or how an agent can help you, then all of our biogs will be in the links. And if you did enjoy it, follow us, please, and subscribe.
And we'll see you next time.
Listen to the next one.
See you next
Bye.
time. Bye-bye now.
Bye. Bye-bye.